under dispute with the Department of Health and Human Services mandate.
Well, the dispute is an unprecedented incursion into the religious freedom of church institutions and people of conscience, because HHS is mandating that we cover in our insurance products access to contraceptives, to sterilization, and to chemical abortion, basically, and therefore they are trying to force us to violate our consciences and become complicit in abortions. And this is, as I said, unprecedented. The administration to date has been very skillful in trying to spin this as a issue of women's health care, and it's far from being that. First of all, we don't believe that fertility is a disease or that that pregnancy is a pathology. And as far as access to contraceptives in this early 21st century, access is almost universal. You can find contraceptives anywhere, and they don't cost that much. The problem is that the administration wants us to pay for it, wants us to pay for other people's abortions, and we can't do that, and we won't do that.
Last month, President Obama announced an accommodation for religious groups to this mandate. Was this truly an accommodation?
Not at all, because first of all, the original language of the HHS mandate has been entered into the federal record without any changes. And the so-called compromise that President Obama answered is no compromise. Basically, he says, well, we'll tell the insurance companies to pay for this, and therefore the religious organizations won't have to. But the insurance companies will turn to the religious organizations and charge us, because they won't give away anything for free. They're in the profit-making business. At the same time, many of our dioceses have their own self-insurance, and so we are our own insurance companies, and the accommodation would not give us any relief. Basically, the president came out to announce the compromise without meeting with anybody, and usually you don't have compromises that are done unilaterally, and so his February 9th accommodation was a sham. Unfortunately, he has the power of the bully pulpit, so he's been trying to present this not as a religious liberties issue, but as a women's health issue, and it's not that.
On Friday, March 3rd, Cardinal Timothy Dolans wrote a letter to all the bishops mentioning the broader religious freedoms that are under attack. He has a strong quote: "We did not ask for this fight, but we will not run from it." Is there a plan yet for the defense of religious freedom?
Well, basically, we have an uphill fight. Last week, one of the senators, a friend of the church's position, Senator Blunt, he had a piece of legislation that would have basically reversed the HHS mandate. It failed to get the majority of the votes in the Senate by a few votes. And so now we have to look for another legislative remedy, perhaps bringing another proposal, a bill that would essentially do the same thing, or we have to have recourse to the courts and seek the courts to overturn this HHS mandate, because in our way of looking at it, this mandate is unconstitutional, because the U.S. Constitution, our first freedom in the First Amendment, is that the state has no right inhibiting the practice of religion, and by imposing this mandate on us, it really denies us the freedom to serve as Catholics in a way that is consistent with our moral beliefs.
What counsel can you give Catholics that don't see this as a grave concern? How can the church engage the peripheral Catholics in this discussion?
Well, if Catholics don't see this as a grave concern, they have to wake up and smell the coffee, because if this erosion of religious freedom is allowed to stand, what will be the next step? And again, in this country, we've had limitations on our religious freedom in the sense that a kind of way of interpreting the separation of church and state precludes any state funds, any government funds going to Catholic schools. Except, now that was, we could argue that that was unfair and unjust, and if the government could support Catholic schools without violating the separation of church and state, because other countries that have similar legislation do so. Canada, Australia, France. France is much more secularized than the United States, but they have no problem giving monies to support the Catholic schools. Here in this country, they don't. But that doesn't, deprive us of the freedom of opening up our own schools and operating them and paying for them ourselves, which we are doing. It's very costly. Parents make tremendous sacrifices to send their kids to Catholic schools. But right now, this HHS mandate is saying that our hospitals, our universities, our schools, our dioceses will not be able to operate unless they provide an insurance product to our employees that violates our moral beliefs. In other words, we're going to have to be complicit in subsidizing abortions and sterilizations and contraceptives. And this is very, very dangerous, and this could end up in the secularization of the Catholics' healthcare network and educational network.